Nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to Nerderotic. My name is Gary Beekler, and I come to you from Nerderotic.com, and we need to talk about the comic book industry once again. I visited Two Cats Comics yesterday on its final day of business, said goodbye to Christian. He told me, the owner of the shop, he told me he's going camping. He looked relieved, to be honest with you, and I know how that feels. I know exactly how he feels, so I have great empathy for him, and that's why I went by and visited him, bought a couple things, showed my support. A little bit too late. That's kind of what the comic book industry has turned into, a little bit too late. It's become tired in its politics. It's become tired in its business model, and it just was a giant monolith that refused to change. And it runs the same business practices today that it did 5 years ago when I sold my shop and 15 years ago when I bought my shop in 2003. Nothing has changed except it's gotten worse. You would think with a billion-dollar industry out there, the MCU, that comic shops would be doing gangbusters. And maybe not just selling comics, but toys, apparel, that lifestyle brand that Marvel's talking about. But that's just not the case. Why is that? Well, I think the comic book industry thinks it actually has something to do with the MCU's success. And it does. Unfortunately, Disney doesn't think it has anything to do with its success. So while the comic book industry, and I mean the entire comic book industry, DC and all of them, think they have something to do with the MCU and why these movies are making billions of dollars, they feel like they are the celebrities. They feel like they can say whatever they want. They feel emboldened by the MCU's success. And it's just not the case. The MCU's billions are not trickling down to the comic shops or any of the creators, but that's not stopping them from thinking they are starring in these films and they are the celebrities and they can spout out whatever politics they think or attack any fan they want to. Now, there are other reasons as well. In particular, there is Diamond. Diamond Comics is the sole distributor. It's a monopoly by accident. Let me tell you a little story. Two Cats Comics, which I visited yesterday, opened up within a mile of my store. I was pissed. But you know what I did? It lit a fire under my ass. I got better. I improved the shop. And he improved his, and we both coexisted, had our own clientele, and did better. Competition breeds innovation. When you don't have competition in distribution, you don't have a growing industry. You have one that is dying slowly of cancer, and in the last couple of years with SJW Marvel, it decided to take up smoking. And SJW Marvel, while not the entire problem, is a huge part of accelerating the death of the comic book retailing industry, and I will get to that. But we're almost 10 years into Disney buying Marvel now, and the result is completely unsurprising. Many of us said, hey, we'll probably get good movies, but the comic books will suffer, and that's exactly what's happening. But I didn't think the comic book shops would suffer that much. I never thought, like I said, this industry was going to survive forever. I thought it had a good decade left. I don't think that anymore. I think there will always be some shops here and there in like New York and big cities, but as far as the little shops, they're dropping off. The business model for the comic book industry no longer works for the smaller to mid-sized shops. They are not growing. They have not been growing for years. This industry has not been growing for years. It has been stagnant. Amazing Spider-Man generally sells the same now as it did 10 years ago when Disney bought Marvel. That is stunningly average. So the retailers finally spoke up. Brian Hibbs put out a 10-point plan, which would have been great in 2014, to be honest with you. But now it is too late. And this is the danger of speaking up too late. And this is why the world needs heretics. I would rather speak up too soon than too late. This is why many of us have been railing against Star Trek Discovery and Star Wars and Doctor Who and Ghostbusters and the gaming industry and everywhere in entertainment right now, because this is going to be your result. The comic industry is the herald of what is to come, because you cannot alienate half of your audience and survive, and you can't choose your audience. And the comic book retailers were the ones who had the power to maybe enact some change. They have done it before. Brian Hibbs has done it before. Brian started a class action lawsuit against Marvel with other retailers, but not all other retailers. Believe me, he voiced his frustration that not enough people would jump on board, but many benefited when Brian Hibbs spearheaded a class action lawsuit that forced Marvel to settle after they refused to accept returns on books that shipped late and books with last-minute creator changes, and got everybody a check. Hell, I got a $500 check and I had nothing to do with it because I had just bought my store. And I thank Brian for that, and it looks like Brian's trying to do it again. And it's not Brian's responsibility. But to try to get into the head of retailers, listen, you're just in your own bubble. You just want to sell comics. You don't want to get involved in some political fight. But sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to be the lone voice out there to get the other voices in there. You have to be the first one to speak up. And you know what? Those who try the most fail the most. And sometimes it's the wrong idea. But it shouldn't stop you from voicing what you think. And right now, with all the silencing of voices, with people just complaining about a superhero movie and YouTube changing algorithms, and now Article 13 and 11 have passed, which I will do a video in another day. And I've gotten a copyright strike on the same day it passes and lost my live streams for 3 months. Again, more on that later. Another video probably. But I wanted to do this one first because it's that important to me. The comic book industry has been rearranging the deck chairs on a very slowly sinking Titanic for a long time now, but it hit the second iceberg of SJW Marvel and SJWism. It's not just Marvel. DC played their part as well. DC played their part with the stupid wedding thing that they pulled last year with Batman and Catwoman. And they lost a lot of fans over that. And they lost the trust of a lot of retailers. And DC had largely been the friendliest towards retailers. That's why it was so disappointing. Marvel has never been good with retailers prior to Disney and after Disney. I was kind of hoping it would get better with Disney, but it didn't. And that is the danger of running your companies too autonomously, I think. The inmates ran the asylum with Marvel. I know there's a lot of very on-the-nose analogies here, but they are applicable to what has been going on. And the retailers not speaking up about the politics is disappointing and suicidal. The comic book retailers have a very unique perspective in pop culture and the comic book industry. They are on the ground floor of fandom, on the front lines of fandom. And in a comic shop, people don't just talk about comic books. They talk about the TV shows, the movies. So they hear the voices of the fans directly. And they are somewhat of a fan advocate. And they are the ones that have the best interests of the fans at heart because they want to sell things to them. So ignoring the biggest problem in comics that you can fix, which is the politicization of comic books. That is something that can be fixed immediately. The other things, Diamond, Marvel's publishing practices, DC's publishing practices, that's going to take time. But the thing you can fix right now is the one thing they refuse to acknowledge exists. And that is mind-boggling to me. What could be the motivation to not bringing it up? Fear? Fear of looking bad on the internet? Who cares? This is your life. This is your income. This is your dream. And you're letting it crash and burn because you don't want to look bad? I mean, I can't get my head around it. You have to speak up. And like I've said before, most comic shop owners just want to sell comics and have fun. Who could blame them for that? I don't blame them for that, but sometimes you got to speak up for yourself and for your industry. And you got to listen to the fans. All the fans consider us instead of silencing our voices or ignoring our voices. But do it to your peril. While seeing another comic shop close and seeing Christian and seeing the sadness in his eyes, I feel bad for him, but I don't feel discouraged. I don't feel discouraged that I got a copyright strike and I can't live stream and I've lost a portion of my income. I feel motivated, more motivated than ever, because we must be doing something right. We have major corporations tripping over themselves and changing their business models and their business platforms to silence us because we are gaining traction. People are subscribing to our channels. We have become the comic shops. The YouTube channels are now the comic shops. Where fans come together to talk about stuff we love and voice our concerns about people invading the things we love to use them to their own ends. And it needs to stop. And they won't stop us. You can try. You could try with Article 13 and 11. We will find another way. Disney is going to have to pay attention at some point, because the loss of comic shops is the loss of your source material and a loss of the word of mouth. Comic shops is where word of mouth starts for superhero films. And the more comic shops close, the more word of mouth dies. And the word of mouth here on YouTube isn't very positive, especially the treatment we have been getting from the Access Media and Disney itself. If you want to help cultivate that, if you want to help turn that around, maybe you should start considering our opinions, considering what we have to say, because we wouldn't say it if we didn't want these things to get better. If we didn't care, we just wouldn't say anything and watch you crash and burn. I keep hearing from the Access Media and others that these are conspiracy theories, but considering why so many in the Access Media and at Marvel Comics and at CBS and at the BBC and at Disney are fighting so hard to keep things from going back into the middle, it's hard not to think it's an agenda. The reason I've kept this comic shop picture up is I want it seared in everybody's mind that this is the end result of alienating half your fan base with personal politics that you believe is the right side of history. Does this look like the right side of history? For the time being, I will still be uploading videos here, but my live streams will be at Nerdrotic Live. Link will be in the description. Please subscribe, and I will be doing all of my live streams there until this copyright strike is either lifted or appealed. Until then, we do not kneel, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.